What is the goal of Russian disinformation and influence operations in Europe?
That is to undermine the trust of the citizens to their democratic institutions, to mainstream media, to their transatlantic alliances and relationships, and to create some kind of chaos and distrust among the wider public as well as the policymakers, so that the society is much more leaning to voting for extremist movements, far-right or far-left candidates, and basically thinking that the whole world is against them.
What tools does the Kremlin use to spread disinformation?
The Russian Federation or the Kremlin uses a various of tools. Probably the most famous one are the disinformation operations, so different disinformation on social media, traditional media even, trolls, automated bots on Facebook, Twitter and elsewhere. But there is also a lot of other tools that are being used and that are complementing or being supported by disinformation operations. We are talking about espionage and basically agents that are gathering information in different countries. We're talking about support and mutual legitimization with political leaders, high-level policymakers who can often travel to Russia and defend its aggressive policies in Ukraine and elsewhere. We're talking also about support for different extremist movements, including paramilitaries, establishing gungos or non-governmental organizations which seem independent but really are directed or financed by the Kremlin. We are also talking about abusing ethnic minorities in Europe, and last but not least, economic operations, usually different trade deals in the areas like energy, infrastructure, financial sector, which establish the Russian influence in the country and which usually have some significant political goal.
What strategies can European countries use to defend themselves against these disinformation campaigns?
I think it's really necessary for each country to be able to combine activities on the side of the government, parliament and civil society, also journalists and private sector if it's possible. I think the strategy needs to be coordinated and complex in many areas. And what we really have to do is to raise the awareness of policymakers and general public so that they would understand what threat they're facing. We need to mobilize a little bit, so we need to be ready for any incidents or attacks on our democratic system. We should be able to talk about deterrence, how do we put a cost on what the Kremlin is doing in Europe, and we also need to build our resilience, find vulnerabilities and gaps in our own democratic systems and try to repair them.